Also in the NFL, over the weekend, more preseason games. The Ravens lost a centerpiece to their offense. J.K. Dobbins goes down,
Very tough.
uh,
Man,
out
I
for the
feel bad
year,
for him.
knee injury.
Sorry. Um, just making sure that we were not supposed to have a topical discussion on fantasy football. We're not. No. Also, fantasy implications for J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, it's very tough. He is a stud, or was going to be a stud. I still think he will be at some point. Uh, Probably shouldn't have been in the game. Gets hurt, tears his ACL and what?
I think they're
LCL?
looking at LCL as well, possibly, which is, if it happens, that sucks, but it's fine there. It's all going to get repaired. It's not going to extend his timetable for returning from this injury, but it just he was pretty much their running back room. They're going to run a platoon there in Baltimore between him and Gus Edwards. They've always, not always, but they've done that with Ingram and Dobbins. But now, when you're down to just Gus Edwards, Gus Edwards is a good complementary piece. He's not your RB1. So they're probably going to be looking for some other talent to bring into that backfield. It calls into question how much you should be playing your starters in these preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
I know that someone scolded the Ravens on Twitter about playing their starters, and J.K. Dobbins liked the tweet after the injury. So he probably feels the same way to an extent. There's obviously pros and cons to playing your starters in these preseason games. Like, it's good to get them reps, but you're also exposing them to the potential for these season-ending injuries. And we see it every single year. Every single year it happens, and there's no telling on if, like, you didn't play them, if they would have their first snap in the regular season and the same thing happens. You just don't know. But it was a rough hyperextension for J.K. Dobbins that caused these tears, which really sucks. So, talking of potential suitors or players that could be picked up by the Ravens, my pick is Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
you brought this up, and when you did, I was like, fuck, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so Le'Veon Bell, he's a little bit washed up. Like, after leaving Pittsburgh, he hasn't done a ton. He went to the Chiefs last year and had an unceremonious exit from them, talking trash on Andy Reid. He wasn't the number one guy there.
No.
I feel like
CEH.
he's kind of a perfect fit for the Ravens. I don't think he plays. Before this injury, I was like, I don't see him playing in the NFL again. Honestly, just the way that he is fucked with every single team that he's been with, and we're seeing less and less return on investment from any team that brings him in. However, in this situation where you don't really have a good established running back, you're able to go pick this guy up who is a dynamic playmaker when he's at his best, and putting him out there with Lamar Jackson in that sort of an offense, and he comes in to have the opportunity to be the number one guy. I think you're able to go out there, give him a relatively minimal deal, laden with incentives, and also a lot of language saying if you fuck around and you start becoming a locker room headache nuisance, we can cut your contract at any time for these conduct issues. That it would end up being a good situation for both of them, because Le'Veon Bell's career is kind of in the trash can at this point. He needs a redemption situation. This could be his redemption situation. It allows him to go play, a bunch of these AFC teams that have done him wrong in his mind in the past, in the Steelers, in the Jets and stuff like that. I think it would be a really good situation for him. I think the Ravens could potentially get him on the cheap, and then that provides a scary dynamic if he plays up to his previous potential for the Ravens.
Yeah, so I'm very cautious about saying the things I'm about to say because I don't want this to happen. Le'Veon Bell is a perfect fucking fit for that team. Gus Edwards is not a premier back. Le'Veon's not a premier back anymore. But a highly motivated Le'Veon Bell in an AFC North division where he gets to play the Pittsburgh Steelers twice, who he had issues with. Gets to play against the Bengals. He'll get to play against the Browns again, but that's a much improved defense. It could be a really, really good fit. It gives Lamar an extra weapon who can catch the ball out of the backfield, which is something that Lamar probably needs some help with.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not just throwing it to Mark Andrews because he can't throw it outside the fucking numbers. That I don't want to see it happen, but if the Ravens are looking for a back, that's who you go get right now, I think.